Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. This is a safe space, and I figured I would start sitting down and having conversations with you guys. Back to the purpose of why we're here for this video. So I want to make this video because there are some things that I wish that I knew before attending grad school or applying to a PhD program. Just knowing how to mentally, physically, emotionally prepare for grad school, because I feel like it's talked about, but grad school was really difficult for me mentally, physically, emotionally, all the above. And I just wish that there were some things that I knew before going into my PhD program or even considering a PhD program. So here are some of the things that I wish I knew prior to, and hopefully they can help you guys if you are considering going to grad school or applying to a PhD program in the biomedical sciences. So I have my mini iPad. I literally love this thing, and I have notes. Put it in my little calendar content creating app because I just thought that it would make sense for all of it to be in the right place. So I'm going to start off with some of the things in the sciences that I wish I knew. The one thing that should have been the obvious thing is that you will literally breathe science. And I say that because I came straight from undergrad, and in undergrad I went to a liberal arts school. We had to take different classes, so I was breaking up like a lot of my science classes with art classes, psychology classes, all of the above. When I got to grad school, like everything is science. Like I literally breathe science from the time I wake up in the morning. I'm thinking about experiments until it's time to go, and maybe even after that. Everything around you is science related, so you really have to love science. I do love science, but also like I was used to nurturing those other sides of me, whether it was art, English class. I had all of those choices, but in a PhD program, you literally are doing science. You're taking science classes, you're doing science in lab, you're reading about it, you're talking to people about science. So just be prepared for that. I know that's obvious, literally your everyday life. So when considering going into a PhD program, just think about that. OMG, please excuse this horrible pause location. But what I'm really trying to say is in undergrad, I was really used to having other classes that weren't just strictly science related. And that was an adjustment for me entering into grad school. I knew how much science I was getting into, but it forced me to nurture those interests outside of the lab or the institution I was in, and do that on my free time or find ways to incorporate it like YouTube. That was all I was trying to say. The next thing is people come in with different experiences. I don't think that I actually realized that there are people from all ages, all walks of life that have applied to a PhD program. When I was applying, I just thought, oh, like people straight from undergrad or people that completed their masters are applying. No, there are some people that are coming in that have waited a few years, and it's nothing wrong with that, but I had a very jaded view of what grad school would be like and what type of people would be in grad school. It literally made me kick into adulthood, if that made sense. I felt like I had to mature a lot more. A lot of them weren't coming directly out of undergrad, so I'm thinking like a lot of people were coming straight from undergrad, we're all in the same playing field, and that's not what it was. And I feel like I came in with a jaded view and expecting to have similar experiences as people, which wasn't true. Some people came from industry, some people did get their master's, some people waited a few years, worked in a lab, whatever their walk of life was. I just didn't really realize that whole scope of individuals that applied or got into the program. The next thing is to not burn yourself out to impress anyone, to think that it's going to get you ahead. Don't burn yourself out. Set realistic expectations for yourself and what you can accomplish. And like my mentor said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. I feel like everyone that applies to a PhD program or somebody that is applying to grad school in general is an overachiever. We think that we have to always overachieve. No, give yourself some grace. Like, this is a 5 to 6 year journey, especially in a PhD program. So relax. The thing is to take things with a grain of salt. Like, I felt like coming in, I was hearing so many different opinions. I like internalized all of them and felt like nowhere would be perfect for me, but everyone is coming in with different experiences and nobody is you. Literally nobody is you. So you have to make your own best judgment, and that's what I struggled with and this is one of my downfalls. I feel like I'm used to having opinions from so many people and so many people inflicting their opinions on my life. I kind of internalize everyone else's opinion, and that is not going to work in grad school. So during your grad school journey, take everything with a grain of salt. Listen to everybody's advice, but ultimately make the decision that's best for you, because you know who you are. The next thing is competitiveness and how to deal with it. Labs are very competitive, and I didn't realize that some people were reaching out to PIs like summer before. I didn't start emailing PIs until I got on campus. I didn't know who I wanted to work with. I mean, I knew, of course, some people from my interview, but like, I didn't know exactly who I wanted to work with. I didn't have a dream lab. Some aspects, UNC is not a competitive school in that aspect at all, but there is some competitiveness to labs. There might be multiple people wanting the same lab, and they only might have a certain amount of spots. A lot of rotations or labs that you might be interested in might be taken up. And I just never really thought about the competitive aspects or the competitive nature in that respect, because I just thought that there were so many options to choose from. I didn't think that I would be limited in some of those aspects. I just kind of had the idea that everything would work out. But these are some things that you really have to think about, and think about what you're willing to compromise and how hard that you're willing to go. I feel like that kind of contradicts what I was saying about don't burn yourself out. But if you're ever feeling anxious in a space, or you feel like you're not being yourself, or I don't really know how to say this, if you're working beyond your capacity, then maybe that space is not for you. I just feel like it's competitive to an extent. It shouldn't be like competitive to the point where like you're losing sleep, you're not taking care of yourself just to prove that you're supposed to be in this lab, you know? Like, it should come naturally. Make sure to charge your social battery. I didn't realize how much of a social battery that you would need for grad school. There are so many like socials, outings, networking on campus. Make sure that you can have good conversation and you can talk. And this is something that I'm working on, because sometimes my social battery is not up there, y'all. And like, especially with the year that I had, oh my gosh, sometimes I just did not want to be bothered. Like, sometimes it can be overwhelming. But in grad school, people are always talking, people always want to talk to you, socialize, network. There's so many opportunities. You have to make sure your social battery is charged at all times. Like, there are some days where you can just like chill, especially in my respective labs, but during the rotation process, I always felt like my social battery had to be like on. Now I'm chilling, so it's good. So this is also contradictory to my previous point, but a little bit different. Make sure that you are asking questions and getting different perspectives in ways that could benefit you. Like, ask questions that you need to know or for input, and like I said, take that with a grain of salt. But I'm saying this to say, like, don't be a hermit. Like, ask questions, ask people, talk to people, which it goes back to the social battery. And this really doesn't have a lot to do with science, but this has a lot to do with networking. I felt like a lot of grad school things for me, things that I didn't know, because I already knew that I had to come in and read. I had to like do the manual work, but a lot of things like outside of the science I wish I knew, but still related to the science. So ask questions about the research, ask questions about what they do, ask questions about what methodology they use, ask about the lab culture, ask questions about things that are beneficial for you. I feel like I asked a lot of questions, but I felt like I wasn't asking the right questions. Maybe I can do a video about that, about like what sort of questions you should be asking grad students, the PI, all of that, and even the Office of Graduate Education. Make sure you're asking questions that can help you make the right decision for your grad school journey. Okay, so moving on to like the more personal stuff, I'm going to try to move through this pretty fast. One thing is, be mindful that you are moving to a new environment, and I'm still adjusting to this. I moved away from my family, I moved away from my friends, moved away from things that I was familiar with. It's different in college because you're constantly surrounded by people. Here you are in the workplace, but outside of that, like, I don't really have a community here. So I think that I underestimated the fact that I was moving to a new area, and I thought I was more extroverted than what I was. I feel like I'm an ambivert. Take into consideration that you're moving to a new environment. If you decide to move to a new state, place, city, wherever, I did not take that into consideration, and I thought like things were just going to come easy. I'm getting my apartment, I'll make friends eventually, I'll figure it all out. And I struggled. I'm still struggling. I still don't know like what things look like, what hobbies look like for me, what my outside life, what do I enjoy. And I think being alone actually like forced me to have to like face that in some ways. So be conscious of that. Another thing is politics. The connections that you make in grad school are valuable. I'm saying that because a lot of things in grad school can be very political by the way you interact with people, how you talk with people, if you rub somebody the wrong way. Academia is a really small environment. So the connections that you make and the impressions that you make on people, not saying that you have to be a people pleaser. By all means, do not do that. But like, be cognizant of how you interact with people and the connections that you make, because they could either help you or hurt you in the long run, and that's something that I wish I knew. Another thing is learning how to manage money, y'all. I'm gonna make a whole different video about this, but if you know a grad student, please pray for them, because y'all, we're broke. Not literally, but like we're pretty broke. Managing money was something that I had to learn to do, and I still kind of struggle with, but that will be in another video. That's actually going to be filmed for y'all sometime next week, so stay tuned for that. Prioritize your needs and advocate for yourself. I feel like I'm still learning to do this, like advocating for things that I need, things that I may want, help that I may need, because in grad school you will be your biggest advocate. Nobody's going to sit there and hold your hand and advocate for you. You got to do that yourself. Like, we're adults. I'm an adult, and I felt like straight from undergrad, like, not saying I had my hand held, but like in some aspects I never really had to actually like advocate for what I might need and what better suits me. I think that's super important, and that kind of goes into not compromising. And I didn't compromise at all. Like, I literally love my lab, I love the space that I'm in, and I say that like almost every video now. In some aspects, before I found my lab, I felt like I was compromising aspects of myself, or I felt like I would be compromising aspects of myself in labs. And some people were like, oh, like, you're not going to find a perfect space, like some things you might need to wait on and all this other stuff. And like, I just did not compromise what I wanted. Like, I knew my YouTube channel was super important to me. The type of mentorship that I needed was super important to me. Like, I knew what I wanted, and I knew labs like that existed. So it was all about finding a space that worked for me, even if the research wasn't a perfect fit. So I was very open-minded when it came to that. In some ways, I felt like I was on the verge of compromising things that I wanted. So please do not compromise things that you may want because you feel like it's a short-term fix, because that is not the case. It will bite you in the behind later on. And lastly, I would say, like, show your vulnerability. Show that you're human. Show your personality. Show who you are. And I'm saying that not like show your whole sleeve, but like basically show aspects of yourself. Be vulnerable. I feel like because we're in a PhD program, sometimes we feel like we can't either express ourselves or be our whole selves and be exactly who we are. And for me, I felt like that, but I felt like that about how I dressed, how I wore my hair, how I talked, how I connected with people. And sometimes in the professional space, I feel like I kind of shied away from expressing myself and being who I truly was. And it was all about really finding myself. Say, like, be vulnerable in connecting with people and expressing how you feel, whether it's in conversations. I feel like people appreciate realness more than anything. And when you're like that with people, I feel like it opens doors for for new conversation, connections. Just wish like in the first part of my PhD journey I was more vulnerable than what I was. I started being more vulnerable towards like the middle to end of my first year in grad school. I feel like I didn't do a great job explaining that, but if you have questions, please leave them down below in the comments. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. Comment down below what other videos you would like to see, and I will try to make another video like this. And like I said, I really enjoy hearing from you guys and where you are currently in your journey. Please feel free to reach out to me. I love connecting with you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys later. Bye.